Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, we'll go around like this. I have a question from Apurva Prabhu. In the book Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava, it stated that at the moment when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati departed this world, all the clocks in Sri Gauriya Math stopped. Why? What is the significance? I'm just reporting what is stated by those who are present there. None of them saw fit to say exactly why. It may be that we can only speculate because they're not given any reason. It obviously is significant, but the deity is controlling clocks, and there must be, because the deity is controlling everything. I'm so shocked that they stopped. It was as if the life of all the devotees had stopped. That's all I can think. It's a miracle, you could say. There are so many miracles happen. I don't have anything more to say than that, unless someone else wants to add their speculation. Over to you.
There are rumors, well, they're not rumors, but there are statements in ISKCON about whether or not Narasimha appeared on earth or in the heavenly planets. Is that true? Well, Prabhupada said he appeared on heavenly planets, and in Brahma Vaivarta Purana it says that he appeared on this earth. And in South India they have the pillar where supposedly Narasimhadev appeared out of. And then where he washed his hands, where the water still comes out of the ground, red. And anyway, so you've got both. Sometimes it's kalpa-bade. Kalpa-bade means there's a difference in a kalpa, where sometimes the Lord may appear in the heavenly planets, and other times he may appear on earth. So it's no problem. Okay. Should I do another one?
As you like.
Okay. In the Vaikuntha planets, is there a form of Narasimha resides there, or is it the Narayan form with the name Narasimha? Well, two sides to it. One of them is that there's 5 types of liberation, and one of them is that you can have Swarupa, or the same form of the Lord, just like on as many of the Vaikuntha planets, they have the form of Narayan. But just like there's Narasimhadev, there's also Narasimhi. So Narasimhi is a female form of Narasimhadev. So the thing is that I'd say, or also in the Vaikuntha planets, there's one Vaikuntha planet called Krishna. So the form won't be Krishna, it'll be Narayan. So both sides appear to have some validity. Say ye?
As far as I understand, the name Narasimha is there, but definitely he's not killing Hiranyakashipu, as shown in one poster. There's no killing of Hiranyakashipu, that's for sure.
You're empty-handed there, Prabhu.
Many times when devotees ask Srila Prabhupada about in the spiritual world, how is it that you can eat and then what happens, then how the food stock becomes depleted or something. Srila Prabhupada said, you go there, you'll find out. The laws of physics are applicable to this world are not, the Vaikuntha world is not controlled by the laws of physics. And Krishna isn't controlled by the laws of physics, so he can also make miracles. And if that's the beginning of accepting the reality of Godhead, Achintyatva, he has inconceivable potencies. And if we could understand everything about him, he wouldn't be God.
I saw one question. It was addressed to you, Maharaj, if I could answer, and then maybe you could answer also.
Yeah, sure.
A simple thing. No, it's just when the devotee was asking that college students said that as far as they're concerned, the source of consciousness is the brain. So what do we say to these people? Whose brain? You don't say I brain, you say my brain. Who's the my? There's a separation, a distinction there. And Prabhupada has also told us that one famous Indian scientist, he made experiments. He would hook up plants to some kind of machine, and when you approach them with a sharp object, the graph would go to the other side, also showing by their own means that there's also consciousness in plants, but there's no brain there. So brain is not the source. It may be perceived that way externally by our blunt senses, but it's a totally different thing. Hey,
Out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, and the fact of reincarnation. People who are fully conscious and intelligent and they don't have a brain, there are people, they don't have grey matter, there's just some liquid in them. So there's an article by Sadhaputta Prabhu in that Origins magazine, discusses about consciousness in a manner that lay people can understand and relate. He says it's like the brain is like hardware, and consciousness, he gave that example, consciousness is like software, something like that. It's an apparatus on which something has to be, you have to do something to make it operate. It needs to be some program to make it operate. It's a big question for the materialists because there's a whole field of consciousness studies. David Chalmers in the 19-something or others asked the question that the hard question is, what is experience? What we can say that there's sensory input and there's a reaction in the brain, but what is experiencing? And then the whole field of consciousness studies come up. You don't need it. All you need to do is read a few verses of Bhagavad-gita. But the whole field of consciousness studies is to try to prove that it's material, that there cannot be any, there's nothing spiritual there. So they have so many theories, but they're all useless, and they all have serious problems in them. It's a very simple thing. There's another kind of energy altogether, which is not material. But of course they won't accept that because they're scientists. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's a hard question for the materialists because they're so darn stubborn. You know, there's evidence, as you just pointed out. You mentioned you mentioned three categories: near-death, out-of-body experiences, children remember their past lives, cases of reincarnation, and you sort of described the one about people who don't have any brain substance.
They have a sliver of grey matter.
I'm familiar with that case. There's a doctor named John Lorber. It was in Sheffield, England, and there was a student. He was at college level, and he was experiencing repeated headaches. So he went to the doctor, and the doctor didn't know what to do, and they sent him to a specialist, this fellow John Lorber, and they did some what do you call it? CAT scans and MRIs. So they found that he had about less than 4 millimeters of brain tissue there, and he's supposed to have about 5 centimeters. And according to medical science, this guy's brain shouldn't work. He was an honors student at mathematics. So the article was titled "Genius Who Has No Brain." He had, according to medical science, he had a brain that shouldn't be functioning at all, and he was an honors student in mathematics. And there's so many examples like that, but they're just so stubborn that no matter how many kind of different evidences you give them, they just dig in their heels and they just refuse to accept.
Just as you can program a computer that every time you shine a blue light in a certain area on the computer, it will say, I see a blue light. But is that consciousness? No.
Yeah, I think Sadhguru gave that example in the Arjun's magazine, as a matter of fact. So I got a question here. It says, please, should a temple support a grihasta if he wants to remain a full-time book distributor? In parentheses it says, if they have the Lakshmi to do so. So before I directly answer the questions, read a couple excerpts from letters Prabhupada wrote. It's in a letter to Sri Govinda, January 31st, 1973, Prabhupada said, wrong letter. Letter to Rameswar, August 3rd, 1970, said, there's no doubt about it, to distribute books is our most important activity. And then, another letter to Sri Govinda, December 6, 1974, says, book distribution must be given stress always. I could go on, but just to keep it short. So, it's obviously a super important activity. I personally think that if the temple can afford to do it, it's not a bad idea, but they shouldn't lose money. It shouldn't be that, they shouldn't make a profit on. When I arrived in Los Angeles and wanted to be a book distributor, I said, okay, sell me the books, you mark it up, 10, 15, 20%, whatever you want. I'll buy the books from you and I keep the profit and I'll just take care of, I'll pay everything else. I'll pay for the rent on the apartment and everything else. But they didn't want to do that. So they said, no, we prefer you just go out on Sankirtan, everything you collect, you hand in, and we'll take care of pay your rent and whatever, monthly allowance. I had no choice. It's worked out that the temple came out in the black. I've collected enough so that there was profit. But I don't think there's if I had to, if I still would prefer the other arrangement. I think it's a healthier arrangement for a grihasta. For brahmachari, no question. Brahmachari just goes out. He's completely supported by the temple, hands in everything he collects. But for grihasta, I think it's better that he, has to stand on his own 2 feet like that. And I'll just throw this in, I don't know how exactly. Prabhupada's also idea of how grihastas should live was way different than how grihastas live today. I know that 2 things that I remember was that in Los Angeles, the apartments, there was not just one couple living in an apartment. They had a curtain up and there was 2 couples living in an apartment. 2 men on one side and 2 on. And also there was a letter from Prabhupada where he said, yeah, the grihastas can keep some percentage of the profit from their book distribution, 10, 20%. So I don't know how anybody could manage on that. But Prabhupada's idea was that everybody should live very simple and renounced. Anyway, I'm sure it's related somehow. But bottom line is I think it's better for a grihasta to just, he could stand on his own 2 feet. That's better. I just think it's a healthier consciousness. I'd like to have Divyanga say something about this because he's also been he's been supporting himself as a book distributor practically his entire career in Krishna consciousness as well.
Just clarify, you said a curtain in the middle, 2 men on one side, 2 women.
That's what I was told. Even if it was one couple on one side, one couple on the other, but it's not like it is today. It's quite a different standard.
Prabhupada did say once, a long time ago, he said, and our grihastas can support themselves by selling our books too. That's Prabhupada's statement. Anybody want to try that?
Not easy.
So Maharaj, then your grihasta couples, it's a direct question, your grihasta couples, if they want to sell books, can they keep a little percentage?
Yeah, I'm open to that.
There you go.
I've had one disciple has been doing it for years. One problem is that they get into, this is in India, They prefer to sell pictures and incense because they sell more easily.
Oh.
And then they go dressed in their dhoti and people think they're giving a donation to the temple.
Oh.
And they get into selling pictures, and Krishna pictures are not the only popular ones. Sai Baba is also popular.
Oh, no, I'm just talking books.
It means they no scruples. These are problems that arise.
Oh, books? I didn't know that, thank you.
Mm.
Pati Prabhu, I also heard in LA, don't they save something from your collection for like your retirement when you're no longer going out there? So that they're surely going to support you for life, maintain you, I mean. Is there something like that?
I've heard that rumor.
Oh. You haven't seen it.
But when I talked to somebody who seemed to know something about that, who actually had a conversation with our temple authority about that, and it was a very negligible amount. It's not something that could support even one grihastha couple for any prolonged period of time. So realistically, it hasn't happened. Yeah.
Okay, let's move along. Who's next?
Why are pure devotees like Bali Maharaj or Prahlad Maharaj born in demoniac families? Krishna says, Name Bhakta Pranashiti. Surely even devotees would have performed devotional service before. So why do they take birth in demoniac families? I don't know. I mean, somebody say something. I don't really know how to answer that. I mean,
Leela,
yeah,
because Vishnu's involved.
good. Yeah, that is a good answer. There's a reason for everything. Bali Maharaj had his Leela with Vaman, and of course Prahlad Maharaj. So it's Krishna's arrangement. That's the answer. Any other comment?
Want to say something about that?
Oh.
Go on.
Along the same lines, why is Bali Maharaj a Mahajan if he's a demon? How did he get to be a Mahajan? Kind of reversed.
It's Krishna's great mercy on the demons that he sends a devotee to be born in such a situation that they can get the association of a great devotee. He's the best friend of all living beings, Krishna.
It's also mentioned that even now Vamanadev is protecting Bali Maharaj in the Sutala Loka. So it isn't just a one-time thing, it's that this goes on continually. So the Lord likes to do it because he sees the bigger picture, we see the small picture.
A Purvadas, who I've known for 53 years, tried to steal my question. When he read it, he handed it back to me. You guys ask hard questions. So here we go. In the Bhakti Siddhanta Vaibhav, you state, quote, sections of Sri Caitanya-caritamrta describing the intimate feelings of Radharani for Krishna were forbidden, unquote, for reading within the Gaudiya Mat. Which chapters or sections does this refer to? Should we exercise similar caution? And if I attempted to answer this question, you would be immensely disappointed. So I'm going to refer to Maharaj. He wrote the book. But I will expand on a question that was asked today of Divyanga Prabhu by Mataji. about controlling your mind during japa. Before coming to Krishna consciousness, I was desperate for the authorized process of self-realization, and I really wanted to know the tools of self-realization. I like to say I was cheated 1,000 times by bogus swamis and gurus and yogis until I met Srila Prabhupada and asked my pertinent questions. And I was given my japa bead. Srila Prabhupada ki. So Mataji's question referred to keeping concentrated on the holy names during japa. So I actually have written 108 prayers to my mala, which is a tradition of the acharyas. And the brahmacharis in Denver used to like them so much they'd read them before the japa period on Akadashis. So I like the subject matter. So the answer is you have to beg Nam Kripa. So before I begin my japa sessions, I have a series of prayers that I read. And in every prayer I'm begging Srila Prabhupada and the Panchatattva, Haridas Thakur, and the divine couple to please help me to hear these pure holy names. So the answer is that we have to pray with deep feeling, that our mind be clear and we can focus on clear pronunciation and effective chanting. And Mataji, that's what helps me. And I've expanded on that advice to others in my travels, and they apply it and they say it really helps. So I hope that's helpful to you.
Then you have to say how others can avail of that.
Well, as a matter of fact, one of your disciples, actually Maharaj, one of his disciples, Mother Madhavi Lata Devidasi, she was told by Maharaj to translate the prayers of Premananda Thakur's Manak Siksha. When I found that out, she and her husband live on the farm in Texas with me. I said, how long ago did Maharaj tell you? She said, a year ago. And I said, you're going to do that, and you're going to do it now. She translated all those prayers, and I helped edit them, and Maharaj was quoting the translations in England the other day. It's very nice. So she is very helpful, and she's helped me to type up my prayers before japa, and so we could make them available. What I like to recommend to devotees is to memorize at least 5 or 7 prayers in glorification of Lord Chaitanya. You should know 5 or 7 prayers by memory. Before your japa period, you can recite some of those prayers. It takes me about 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes before my japa period to recite these prayers. And of course, there's that prayer, Kripa Kori Nam Rupi Tava Avatar Nama Hoite Hoy Sarva Jagat Nistar, where Haridas Thakur is begging the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be blessed with the pure holy name. So I recite that every day. So I beg Haridas Thakur's mercy, Prabhupada's mercy, obviously. And so these prayers can be available. You can talk to me, and we can give them to you. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
I made the LA temple sound kind of bad by the way I responded to that comment about but I just want to set the record straight that our temple president, Sravaspa, was more than fair to all the devotees, not just book distributors, but to all devotees who are doing full-time service there. And he's not in writing, but verbally he's assured myself and other devotees that even when you get to the point where you can't be productive anymore and do your service, still you have a place there. Devotees will have they're able to retire in the place where they're living, and I have no reason to believe that anything other than that is going to happen. So I just wanted to kind of set the record straight there. Thank you.
Sure. Could you pass that question down?
Which one?
That one, yeah. I didn't get a question, so I'm going to ask my own question for the assembled Vaishnavas. Now, we heard in class the other day that the importance of following proper Vaishnava sadachara, Vaishnava behavior. And sometimes I have trouble distinguishing between Vaishnava sadachara versus Hindu superstition versus Indian social custom. since Prabhupada didn't always give detailed instructions in this regard, how do we know the difference? I can give an example of that, is that I had heard from devotees, more than one devotee, that when you chant Gayatri, you should cover your hand. And I saw many devotees do that. Some still do today. And I was doing it for years. And I noticed pictures of Prabhupada. And Prabhupada didn't cover his hand when he chanted Gayatri. And then I was told by someone, oh, that's just a Hindu superstition. So how do we know the difference?
Yeah, well, that's my next book.
All right, I'm going to get a detailed answer to that one.
Vaishnava culture, etiquette, and behavior. It's going to be bigger than Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhava.
Really?
Yeah. Vaishnava culture, etiquette, and behavior. I wrote the essays, more than 100 essays, about 30 years ago, and just catching up now, because I had some other things to do in between.
Thank you, Maharaj. I'll be eagerly awaiting the answer to my question.
Such detailed instructions are given. When we say Hindu superstition, in many cases it is prescribed by Shastra. And because that was, as we find in the introduction to Sri Upanishad, what are the Vedas? That lecture Srila Prabhupada gave. And Srila Prabhupada gave the example that if someone tells someone, you should do this, and he said, why should I follow you? Is it a Vedic injunction? Because very much the society was governed by Vedic injunctions, covering every detail of life, every single thing. They're not in, many of these things are not intrinsic to bhakti. For instance, which direction you face when you sleep. But it's there in Shastra, it has a purpose. The direction we may not even know what the purpose is, we can speculate maybe that's the magnetic field of the earth. Many of them are to do with health considerations. We also hear that if you don't cover when you're chanting, then the ghosts and goblins, they'll take the effect away. Now the holy name is always transcendental. That may be for ordinary mantras, but we still see that ordinary mantras means that are chanted for material benefits. But we see that the acharyas follow this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very particular to cover. He didn't show his beads to anyone. And many, many such things. So the stance that I'm taking in this book, in the Vaishnava culture, etiquette and behavior, is that you don't need to follow many of these things. Especially if you're fully situated on the transcendental platform. And even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to some extent, and our own Srila Prabhupada to a greater extent, just didn't bother with these things at all. One thing, just trying to get his disciples to get to chant Hare Krishna what was that he said? If I tell you all the rules, you'll faint. I'm 80% more lenient than my Guru Maharaj. But those rules are there for a purpose, and they've been followed by shishta, persons who are cultured people, respectable people, for generations. So if we follow, that is going to be better for us. But at the same time, if we get too much into the consciousness that these rules, bhakti is dependent upon these rules, then that becomes smarta consciousness. So it's a matter of understanding and approach. Srila Prabhupada said when his disciples were coming to India, he said in Vrindavan, he said, don't embarrass me. If you drink from a cup, touching, without pouring the water, the whole of Vrindavan they'll say, give me a bad name in the whole of Vrindavan. You may say little things like that. What to speak of our devotees physically fighting in public. So they have their use, they have their application. I also write in this book that this book is especially for those who are going to take the position of Brahmins, because in Indian Hindu culture, Brahmin means someone who's born in a Brahmin family to a large extent. And they can be distinguished just by a thread. And there's nothing else much. Of course, there are very good Brahmins who are still upholding the culture. But then in ISKCON also, if we just have a thread and you're a Brahmin, and the only thing that makes you a Brahmin is that when there's an Abhishek on Janmashtami, you come up in front of everyone else and show I'm a Brahmin. Otherwise, you don't follow anything. So Brahmins are supposed to be the leaders of society by their example, by their vairagya and their vidya. And those, if we're going to have varnashram, we have to have Brahmins to lead, and they should be knowledgeable in all aspects of Vedic culture and should follow it to set the example for others. So this book is especially for those who are going to be Brahmins. Anyone can chant Hare Krishna, but if you're going to be a Brahmin, then you should within Varnashram. A Vaisnava is more than a Brahmin on the spiritual status, but for behavior and knowledge and spiritual leadership, we need Brahmins who are distinguished from non-Brahmins. And they especially should follow all these things. But actually many of these, you may say Hindu superstition, because everyone used to follow things like not drinking, touching the cup. Everyone follows. It's called, another name for Vedic culture is Brahminical culture. Superstition is things like 13 is unlucky, because Jesus was supposed to have been, was it? Is that the reason he was crucified on the 13th or something like that? There's something to do with that. That may be called a superstition. Friday is unlucky because Jesus was crucified on a Friday, something like that. We have to separate in Hindu culture things that have been picked up which are not bona fide. That has to be sorted out. So that book is meant for that. That's the next one. It'll be a few years if I survive this. And we're working on it. Already finished one and started on another. But it'll be a few years. It's a lot of work. So how do we know? You probably won't. When that book is published, you will know to a better extent. Although there are innumerable things. There's so many things. So many little things. How can you know? You may not. Yeah. Oh, when I put that in my book, My Memories of Srila Prabhupada, that when I went for Gayatri Mantra in Vrindavan, 1976, so one of my godbrothers from England also, I was close to him. So he was very enamored by this whole thing. Hari Bhakti Vilas says you should have your thumb pointing this way and this time of the day. So Srila Prabhupada told me the mantras, and he said, you should chant 3 times a day, morning, noon and evening. Do you have any question? Then I asked Srila Prabhupada, is there any specific time of day? Prabhupada said, morning, noon and evening. And then I went on and said, but is there any exact specific? Morning, noon and evening. It's supposed to be in the sandhya, which corresponds to morning, noon, and evening. The English word morning, noon, and evening doesn't exactly convey what sandhya says in Sanskrit, which means 24 minutes before and after sunrise and sunset, and when the sun is at the zenith. Does that leave you more confused? Yeah. Sorry. Sorry.
What gives me great hope that the answer's coming?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
There are advantages to being born in that culture, no doubt. King Puna Brahmana Punya Bhakta Raja Shayast Vidu Anityamasukham Lokam Imam Prabha Bhajasvamam. And Krishna says that even the sinful, the women and the Vaishyas and the Shudras, they can attain me by pure devotion. And what to speak of? What to speak of the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas who worship me in this world? One devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, what does that mean? And Srila Prabhupada gave the example because he was wearing a garland with flowers and leaves, because I believe there was a New Vrindavan and they didn't have many flowers at that time. So there are many leaves also. So Srila Prabhupada said, this is very beautiful. The flowers in, even the leaves in this garland look very nice. What to speak of the flowers? Srila Prabhupada said, there is a difference. And we should always recognize that difference. You spent a lot of time in India, didn't you? You were going among the more cultured people. At that time, especially in the university, there'd be many, the kind of people you're going to, there are many traditional Brahmins like that. So they are special people, no doubt, by their culture. There is a difference between someone who's raised in that culture and someone who isn't. It's very helpful if you're Krishna conscious, which many of them are. Especially we see Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, Madhva Sampradaya. Srila Prabhupada said when the Sri Vaishnavas were called for doing the deity installation in Hyderabad, Prabhupada said these are real Brahmanas. Yeah, yeah. You were there, right?
No, I was in.
Oh.
I was traveling in South India with the Chitananda.
I see. He wasn't there at Chitananda at the temple over there. Surprising, amazing.
Pandals.
No, but at the opening of Hyderabad temple.
I have to look at the date.
Well, you would remember if you were there, surely.
No, yeah, I wasn't there.
You weren't there, yeah. And then we have, it's not only South India, North India. Even the Smartas, they have culture also. The South India more. Srila Prabhupada also said that the Vedic culture is more prominent in South India. And anyone can see.
Even the air is more pure in South India.
Generally speaking, yeah. Someone, what are they talking about? Neo-smarters. They're saying people who want to bring in all these things, they're neo-smarters. But Vaishnavas are also smarters. Smarta means follower of Smriti. So Vaishnava Smriti, Hari Bhakti Vilas. But the term smarta becomes undesirable when it's someone who thinks that you simply follow all the rules for material elevation. Just like we say Jnani means impersonalist, but Jnani is very good. If you know Shastra and you know Krishna through Shastra, that's very good. It's not in and of itself a bad term. Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they went to a lot of work to compile that Hari Bhakti Vilas. Huge compilation. So Was it just a waste of time, or what's it for?
I would call it our Vaishnava manual.
Yeah. But navigating the way through Hari Bhakti Vilas is also quite a job, because it's not specific. It's more like a compendium. I don't think anyone ever followed everything in there, including Sanatana Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And actually says at the end of the book that it's especially for rich grihastas, for deity worship. But many of the things are there, like following festivals to follow, fasting. Shivaratri is mentioned there, Radhashtamayism.
In our society, there is a focus on devotee care. At the same time, I have noticed some devotees distance themselves from devotee association. Although every situation is different, generally speaking, does this happen because improper devotee care in some way? How do we stop this from happening? So, there's a few ways you can look at this. In our own temple, we have one devotee. Her name is Mother Ujjvala Rasa. She's a certified doctor. She takes care of any situations where devotees are, especially older devotees, are sick and they need some kind of medical advice, medical care. As far as devotees distancing themselves from devotee association, well, it actually, one of the qualities of a Vaishnava is he is compassionate on others. So if, for instance, I try and make an effort, if I see that devotees they're not coming to the temple or they're having some difficulty, I try and reach out and just call them up and say, is everything all right? This is part of our culture, that just like the birds that are flying in the sky, sometimes one will fall and then the others will pick him up. So it behooves us all to try and understand the situation of some of our God brothers and God sisters, if they're in some difficulty, to reach out for them and to, just give them some association and some guidance, and not necessarily guidance, but just to reach out and see them and speak with them. So
when I heard we were going to be having this session, I had a total conception that it was going to be primarily about scriptural questions. But I see much more. The interest is like social and like relationships and behavior. That's much more prominent, all of these questions. So I saved mine from last night. This question, there's no name on it, and but it's also along these lines. Since Prabhupada wanted all women to be protected, what advice should we give if a woman is in an arrangement where her Prabhu, husband, is unwilling and unable to protect and care for her? Should she move into a temple, or is Krishna protecting her if she lives alone? And it seems from this that this woman has already decided that she's going to separate from her husband. That's what it sounds like, because she just has two ideas. Now, the thing is, first of all, protection, the greatest protection for a woman is her chastity. So she's, even if her husband is unwilling and unable, that's her first greatest protection. And even if she has a very protective husband, if she herself is not chaste, then that won't be of any benefit. Now, we've been talking a little bit about like maintenance of devotees. One thing is, the Vedic idea is that the woman in old age, she goes to live with her grown son. Now, there are many women not married, and they don't have a son. And even if they are married, they don't have a son. Besides that, even my son is a devotee, and still I would never want to live with my son just because of the different lifestyle. And most devotees, right, I mean, that are practicing strictly, generally our children, it wouldn't be very compatible to live with them. So this is something we're just about to face, because we're just becoming old now. And so she's saying, should we go live in a temple? Should I? The thing is, as Bhagupati mentioned, Suvas is willing to maintain those devotees for life because they've given their life of service. But for women just to show up now when they're 80 years old and expect a temple to maintain them, it's unrealistic, especially in old age. They're unproductive, unable to contribute very much, service generally. And so this is a kind of dilemma that we're about to face, that it's practically unrealistic. And then, like devotee care, temple management will be criticized, how you're not caring for these devotees. But still, to be cared for, like here, they had invited us to come live here. I said, okay, what are you going to do in 10 years? He will be 85 years old, and you're going to, like both of us, I'll be 82 years old, and you're going to like drive us to the doctor. Old people go to the doctor a lot, right? And like you're gonna give facility. You don't really have much room here. You're gonna give living facility and all of that. You know what I mean? It's a real issue what to do, and so and to go live in a temple. Yeah, you have to have the mentality, not that you're just escaping from your husband who's, unwilling. This, of course, we don't know any of the details here, why he's unwilling and unable. And, but you have to have a certain mentality to live in the Brahmacharini ashram. And in another 10 years, there'll be a lot of women looking for shelter in a Brahmacharini ashram. And quite frankly, most temples are unable to financially and physically, having rooms to house all of these old women who are unprotected. So this is, the Vanaprastha ashram now, and Prabhupada said that the men, they should separate, and the wife should live with her son. So anyway, I'm not sure. So you said, will Krishna protect her if she lives alone? So Mother Palini's living alone, and but in another 10 years, perhaps it becomes more difficult for elderly people, and we certainly don't want to go to old age homes. We don't want to go there. So who's going to take care of the single women in our old age? That's another question. Anyway, so I didn't give a solution yet, but at least a thought of what's about to happen 10 or 20 years. Anybody like to comment?
Very good. Very good observation. Very practical presentation. I don't have a solution. I have another question. Okay, this question says,
Oh, wait, before you go on. Anybody else have any comments on this topic?
Is this, you're going to ask a question in relation to the same?
no, different.
So what's going on in Alachua? There are already so many older devotees there. Who's? Oh yeah, I'm looking at the wrong. I should be asking you.
I don't know all the details of all the old devotees that are there, and there are many old retired devotees there, but the ones I know have pensions and they're independent. They don't have any, it's not like the temple's offering them anything.
I see. Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish Varnashram Dharma in which everything, care for women, old people, cows, brahmanas and children, it's all taken part of the social system. It's changing now in India as everything is degrading, but traditionally old people, it's still to a large extent going on, except for those whose children come to America and the West. But otherwise, the old people just, they stay at home, they're looked after. It's something for the family. But then this demoniac society has, to a large extent, dismantled the family, which is the basic unit of civilized society. So many problems come out. I was saying yesterday how this feminism, it's going to cause so many problems for the women. The women, they don't want to be submissive to their husbands, so they live alone. And then when they're old, there's no one cares for them, no one respects them, no one looks after them. So you look at the life of sacrifice, looking after the family, looking after the children, and then you're looked after in old age. But that's not there. You get independently, you just die and no one knows and cares. So we should have established Varnashram. We should have started when Srila Prabhupada said in the 1970s, and we're definitely going to suffer for not doing that. We should do it immediately. Prabhupada said to do it immediately in the 1970s. The whole society is sick, and we have to have an alternative, at least for our devotees. That's not going to solve the problem, the present situation, but we should start now. And all this culture, I'm talking about all these practices, it's all interlinked. We're talking about the culture, it's not just eating with your right hand and sitting down when you eat and all things like this. But it's all interlinked with the culture of Varnashram and the different roles for different people in different settings. It's a vast culture. Should be done. We're trying to do something.
In the meantime, do you think it's legitimate I heard Prabhupada say in lectures a couple times, he quoted that self-preservation is the first law of nature. So my question is it legitimate?
Well, that's what it's come to, isn't it? Everyone's on their own, as in the broader society.
Well, do you think in the meantime there's a certain amount of legitimacy
to that? Isn't it? Right. In most cases. You're saying about LA, Swavash is going to look after you, but then I'm seeing there's a lot of old devotees there, and not so many young ones joining, and it's going to be like in countries like Japan where they have an old population and not enough young people to support the pension funds. It's going to be like the young people, whatever young people are there struggling to keep that whole thing together, as in so many temples, they may not be able financially to support so many old people. What to speak of driving them to the hospital and so many things. What's the practical? Maybe you should ask Sravas Prabhu. Well, but what's the solution to that?
So it's not unrealistic or un-Krishna conscious for a devotee to be thinking like, well, I've got to look out for myself a little bit.
I would think so, yeah. One thing should be clear, and most devotees who are getting married especially, they can understand that we can't rely on ISKCON to look after us. I remember years ago, maybe 20 years ago, one young couple in Europe, they're getting married. I said, well, how are you going to look after yourself? Oh, the temple will look after it. I told them, don't depend on them. Now you're doing service, then you get kids, and then your service will go down, and your expenses will go up. I say, no, they'll look out. And then, unsurprisingly, it happened. And then they just got completely fried and left Krishna consciousness altogether.
What if something happens to Sravas?
What if some happen to survive? Well, some do.
No, Sravas. I'm saying Sravas said, don't worry, we'll take care of it. What if something happens to Sravas?
Well, it will happen.
It's
gonna happen. Old age and death is coming to everyone. He's in 10 years' time. It's very unlikely he's going to be the town president in LA. He's old like everyone else, and someone else comes in, has another policy. So I say, sorry, I didn't make that promise. We're just not able to. Just not able to do that. Then?
Yeah, right. You're right. That's why I put the question out. It seems like everybody has to, be looking at their situation and try to be realistic and make what arrangements they need to make to provide, secure their
as
future.
a movement, if we have a movement, we should have facilities in Mayapur and Vrindavan where old people can go and live simply, old devotees, and be maintained. Those temples, they have a lot of money, actually. Of course, if you ask some presidents, they won't. They do have a lot of money, but of course there's always more to do with the money than, what am I saying here? There are always projects and this and that, but we should do. There's a hospice in Vrindavan for devotees, but you have to pay for it. And it's big bucks. But then we have to see also that how much service devotees have actually done, and are they ready to follow? This one early disciple of Srila Prabhupada, one of my disciples he's asking for money to support him. I said, well, why didn't he go and live in a temple? And then you could help support him living in a temple. You don't want to live in a temple because he's not following all the rules. Would Srila Prabhupada want to support devotees, even though they've done great service in the past, but should we support if they're not willing to follow all the rules? And it's understandable they don't get up early in the morning in old age, but there's things like drinking tea, like that. Or if they have some Mayavadi philosophy which they picked up along the way. So the social questions are always very complex, no doubt. And the bottom line is self-preservation. That's the harsh fact at the present time, but it shouldn't be like that. So we're talking about Vaishnava culture, etiquette and behavior. Then the whole family culture. And family means not just hum do hamare do. We are two and we have two. Or hum do hamare ek. Or hum do hamare teen. Beta hai, beti hai, kutta bhi hai. Those who know Hindi can understand. We are two, it means husband and wife, and we have three. It means boy, child, girl, child, and a dog. That's modern Indian culture. You have to have a dog in the house, which makes you a chandala, by the way. So many devotees have dogs. In LA a few years ago, I saw one devotee who was offering Mangalati. And then the next time I saw him was mid-morning, he was walking down the street with two dogs, taking his dogs for a walk. So, where are we going here? Yeah, family culture. The family means expanded family. There's so many considerations. In ISKCON Baroda, the town president there, Basu Ghosh Prabhu, who's persona non grata in ISKCON North America because he talks about these things, he has looked after, the temple looks after several older devotees, including those who didn't even do much service in Baroda, but just they're old and he's looked after them. Several. And maybe not everyone will be so big-hearted. Even now, there's one devotee, he was in America, Indian devotee, who was in America most of his life. He's there in Baroda. He hardly comes to the temple. He's old and invalid. The devotees look after him. Give him prasadam. He has a room. He reads books. Yeah, you can, as long as Basu Ghosh is the town president, you can all go and stay there. I'm sure he'd be very happy to have you. And actually, in Indian culture, it's not just India. Actually, it's most of. Even if you go in Central Asia, all those Muslim republics, it's the same. They actually like to look after older people, and they consider it an honor to do so. Very different to American culture.
Even here, many Indian families, they have their parents living with them. And I always ask them, do you like that? You like having your mother-in-law? Yeah, we like it very much. Nobody ever says that it's a burden. They really like having their parents, so much so that if there's more than one child, they want to share them. You could stay 3 months with me and then 3 months with the brother, and they like having them and taking care of them.
And children get grandparents also.
Yes.
You need grandmothers. Years ago, Jayadvaita Swami, who's from a Jewish background, and family culture is strong among Jews, generally speaking. He said what this movement is lacking is grandmothers. Now we have lots of grandmothers.
Shall I go ahead with this next question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Social questions.
What direction should a disciple pay obeisances to his or her spiritual master? So, I'm not sure if I've read it, but I've been told in India that a disciple should do what your Guru Maharaj did this morning. When he first came in, he paid obeisances directly toward Srila Prabhupada. Full dandavats, head toward Prabhupada. Then he went up to the altar, paid dandavats with his left side toward the Vishnu Tattva. Now when you go to a demigod temple, you bow down with your right side toward the deity. So that's my understanding.
It's all in Hari Bhakti Vilas. All of this.
Okay.
And bowing down to Guru means parents also. You see in cultured families, even now, they're married with their own children, and first thing in the morning they'll come to their elderly parents and offer obeisance and touch their feet.
Well, here, logistically, because Srila Prabhupada's on the side,
Yeah.
in most temples he's straight back.
Right,
So you
right.
couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So I had heard then we always pay obeisances to the deities with the left. So then always with your right side to the Guru.
And you get rules conflicting with each other, and then it becomes problematic. Dharma sankat. And the whole of Mahabharata is full of dharma sankat. Bhagavad-gita. Arjuna had to fight as duty as a Kshatriya, but how can you fight against your gurus? The whole of Mahabharata is one dharma sankat after another. What to do in such and such a situation, where rules are conflicting with each other.
That's what sankat means? Conflict.
Yeah, it means, what does it mean actually? What's the quandary, problem, yeah. Dilemma. Dvidha is literally dilemma, isn't it? Dvidha. It means a troublesome. It also gives the idea of something trouble. But then we have sankata mochana, Hanuman, so it means problematic, right? Problem, yeah.
May I share something? In Madurai, there's a devotee, Balaram Govind. He has built a beautiful little temple, and his Prabhupada Murti is the most gorgeous in the universe, and he is situated that side of the altar. So when you pay obeisances to the deities, you're paying obeisances also to Srila Prabhupada. And it solves the problem.
But then Srila Prabhupada in Hyderabad and Vrindavan put in that specific situation where you bow down to the deities and your feet will be toward Prabhupada.
Yeah.
Both in Vrindavan and Hyderabad.
Yeah, so you have to scoot way over so your feet are
And another thing, if you offer obeisance with your legs fully open and deities are open, then you're round the wrong way, so to speak. So what can you do?
Yeah. Best you can. So since we're talking about mistakes that have become traditions in ISKCON, I, being a grammar policewoman, would like to ask why devotees changed the words of the Gora Arti song. It used to be Jaya Jaya Gora Chande Arati Koshoba Daki Neni Tai Chand Pame Gadad.
Sunitai Rasal, something like that.
Prabhupada used to sing Nikate Advaita Prabhu Srivasa Chatradhara. So,
I believe we're following the written version of Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Oh,
Maybe
really?
for that reason,
Because I asked our godbrother one time, who is a
The handwriting is there of Bhaktivinoda Thakur,
Yeah?
of many of his
Okay.
songs.
All
Or
right,
maybe
well,
for that.
Our godbrother, I can't remember his name. It starts with a D. It's two names.
T?
D. He's down in Georgia. He was really good friends with Dasharasuta. Thank you. He told me that Srinivas can be a so-called nickname for Srivas. So I
that's
I calmed down a little after that.
Yeah. Srinivas and Srivas means the same thing, and
Really?
sometimes Srivas is referred to as Srinivas.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
With Bengali, there's a little leeway for changing words and this and that. It's not the same as Sanskrit.
submitted a question, but I didn't hear it read.
Well, there's a whole bunch of them.
That's hers.
That's hers.
Yeah, that's hers.
Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were cursed to take 3 births as demons. These births were thousands or millions of years apart. So, what happened to them in between those births? It's kind of the question that people who had science education would ask. Also, the son of Sandipani Muni and the 6 sons of Devaki and others. I don't know. Don't know what happened. Can speculate. Krishna is controller of time, so he can make time short or long, and they can also be cooling off in the impersonal Brahman in between also, or in a state of unconsciousness. That's also possible. Krishna arranges it all for his pastimes. That also the question why Prahlad is born in a demoniac family. It's all part of the pastime, because Krishna wanted to show that pastime of killing Hiranyakashipu, so there had to be some impetus. And then Krishna wants to show how he protects his devotees. And he wanted to show that a devotee can be born in a demoniac family. So many things are demonstrated by Prahlad being born in a demoniac family. Anyone else? Any idea?
So it's not that they would have...
But anyway, it's something like the scientists, they say things that, well, there is a possible explanation. But we don't, just like fine-tuning, it doesn't seem possible. Well, maybe there are an unlimited number of universes, although Big Bang is supposed to be a singularity. And then we just got it right in this universe. But the difference is that according to the rules of physics, which the scientists know, it's all supposed to work in a certain order. But Krishna doesn't have to follow the rules. He can make and break the rules and bend them and twist them and do whatever he likes with them. So that's the difference. That's the achintya factor. And in that sense, we don't really have to understand all these technicalities. That's why I said, because we had this science background, we want to understand everything. But just it's Krishna, that's all. It's Krishna.
Not that they took many, many births until they got to the 2nd and 3rd births.
Finish?
And also,
okay.
Like in the case of the babies, the sons of Devaki, they had to be brought, at a certain age. Like they would have grown up much more, and sometimes in a recognizable form, I guess. They're brought, I don't know.
Well, Devaki wanted to see them as little children, and Krishna was fulfilling her desire. He can do what he likes. But we can't. Okay. This is your question. I would like to hear your story, how you joined, where, when, did you get a book or what? Yeah, I got a book. I just like to know, everyone probably like to hear. Yeah. Anadi karama phale pari bhavarnava jale. And I got one of Prabhupada's books. There's more to it, but there's no time now because we have to have the Abhishek. Right? Okay.
Do you see Mother Dirga's question? You don't have time for that short one. That was a good question.
Well, which one is it? In regards to spiritual master and
It's on the
disciple
bottom.
relationship, I understand eternal relationship. I've also had the spiritual master. You can take birth in the material world as long as... I discussed this in a talk called... what was the name of that talk? Something about He is my Lord, birth after birth. What does that mean? I discussed that in one lecture, this topic. What does it mean? Birth after birth. So that's somewhere on the app. How would you look it up? He knows the app very well. He made it. Is it part of the Guru Issues series? That's it. My Lord, birth after birth. If you look it up on the app or on YouTube, you can find it. And it may not be a fully definitive answer, but again, when we're dealing in the realm of inconceivability, the very meaning of it is that we can't understand it all. There's going to be some things we don't understand fully, always.